All right, let me call the meeting to order. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our first meeting in January. This is a regularly scheduled Greer City Council meeting called and convened this evening, January the 12th, 2016. Having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask Councilman Riley Bettis, if he would, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation. If you will join us in standing for both, I would appreciate it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, I pray that Greer can continue to be deserving of your abundant blessings. We pray for all of our citizens, and especially our service brothers and sisters who protect our freedom both at home and abroad, and all our police and firefighters who live with the possibility of danger on a daily basis. Help us to remember that our actions impact the lives of many people and that we should practice our teachings of love in all that we do. Guide and direct us this day to make decisions that are acceptable in your sight. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Again, your attendance is appreciated this evening. As you are aware, if you've seen a copy of the agenda, we have a fairly lengthy agenda meeting this evening, so we want to continue to move along with that to make effective use of everybody's time. It is indeed an honor that we'll start our meeting this year with basically a ceremony that we have twice or every 2 years, and that is swearing in those elected officials that have run for office. And in this case, we have 3 council members this evening, council seat 1, 3, 5, and then a commissioner and myself. And we are fortunate that our judge, Hank Mims, is able to join us this evening. Hank will be performing the oath of office, and I'm going to ask him, if he would, to come to the front. We are going to, we will do the pledges in order of the council districts, and so Councilman Jay Arrowwood will be the first this evening, and so Mr. Arrowwood, if you would, and I believe somebody is going to join you as well to help in the swearing of the oath. So, Judge, if you'll use the microphone, we want to have this as an official record, so we appreciate you being with us this evening. Thank you, sir.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I am duly qualified,
that I am duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of this state,
according to the Constitution of this state,
to exercise the duties
to exercise the duties
of the office to which I have been elected,
of the office to which I have been elected,
and that I will,
that I will,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of this state
the Constitution of this state
and of the United States.
and of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Hold on just a minute. Is there that one that's for the president? Raise it one more time. It's a 2-part oath. As a council member of the municipality of Greer,
As a council member of the municipality of Greer,
I will equally, fairly, and impartially,
I will equally, fairly, and impartially,
to the best of my ability and skill,
to the best of my ability and skill,
exercise the trust
exercise the trust
reposed in me.
reposed in me,
And I will use my best endeavors
and I will use my best endeavors
to preserve the peace
to preserve the peace
and carry into effect,
and to carry into effect,
according to law,
according to law,
the purposes for which I've been elected.
the purposes for which I've been elected.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Now, congratulations.
Councilwoman Kimberly Booker will be next, representing Council District 3.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I am duly qualified,
that I am duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of this state,
according to the Constitution of this state,
to exercise the duties
to exercise the duties
of the office to which I have been elected,
of the office of which I have been elected,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve,
and preserve,
protect, and defend
protect, and defend
the Constitution of this state
the Constitution of this state
and of the United States.
and of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
As a council member of the municipality of Greer,
As a council member of the municipality of Greer,
I will equally,
I will equally,
fairly, and impartially,
fairly, and impartially,
to the best of my ability and skill,
to the best of my ability and skill,
exercise the trust reposed in me.
exercise the trust reposed in me.
And I will use my best endeavors
And I will use my best endeavors
to preserve the peace
to preserve the peace
and carry into effect,
and carry into effect,
according to law,
according to law,
the purposes for which I have been elected.
purposes for which I have been elected.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you so much, sir.
The Councilman serving District 5, Mr. Riley Bettis.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I am duly qualified,
that I am duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of this state,
according to the Constitution of this state,
to exercise the duties of the office
to exercise the duties of the office
to which I have been elected, and that I will,
that I will,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge,
and preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of this state
the Constitution of this state
and of the United States.
and of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
As a council member of the municipality of Greer,
As a council member of the municipality of Greer,
I will equally, fairly, and impartially,
I will equally, fairly, and impartially,
to the best of my ability and skill,
to the best of my ability and skill,
exercise the trust reposed in me,
exercise the trust reposed in me,
and I will use my best endeavors
and I will use my best endeavors
to preserve the peace
to preserve the peace
and carry into effect according to law
and carry into effect according to law
the purposes for which I have been elected.
the purposes for which I have been elected.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you.
Probably said that was the whole crew, but I don't think that's the whole crew. I didn't think it was.
So we could throw together.
We're privileged tonight to have a CPW commissioner. They are elected at large, and Mr. Jeff Howell is with us this evening to be sworn in for his. And I'm going to ask him how many terms this is. This is the beginning of your fourth term, and those are 6-year terms. So this will be an adventure from. Take him on into 24 years of service for the CPW. We appreciate it.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I am duly qualified,
that I am duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of this state,
according to the Constitution of the state,
to exercise the duties of the office
to exercise the duties of the office
to which I have been elected,
to which I have been elected,
and that I will,
and I will,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of this state
the Constitution of this state
and of the United States.
and of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
As a Commissioner of Public Works
Commissioner of Public Works,
of the municipality of Greer,
municipality of Greer,
I will equally, fairly, and impartially,
will equally, fairly, and impartially,
to the best of my ability and skill,
to the best of my ability and skill,
exercise the trust reposed in me, Now use my best endeavors to preserve the peace and carry into effect, according to the law, purposes for which I've been elected. So help me God.
Thank you, ma'am. Are you coming back? I've got some of the children from the neighborhood that are going to join me. I'll come right up here and I'm going to let y'all hold five, all three of you can. Y'all act like you know me.
You didn't say it now.
Down there.
I think I can get it. Let me see. There we go. All right.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I am duly qualified,
that I am duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of this state,
according to the Constitution of this state,
to exercise the duties
to exercise the duties
of the office to which I've been elected,
of the office of which I have been elected,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve, protect, and defend
and preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of this state
the Constitution of this state
and of the United States.
and of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
As mayor of the municipality of Greer,
As mayor of the municipality of Greer,
I will equally, fairly, and impartially,
I will equally, fairly, and impartially,
to the best of my ability and skill,
to the best of my ability and skill,
exercise the trust reposed in me.
exercise the trust reposed in me,
And I will use my best endeavors
and that I will use my best endeavors
to preserve the peace
to preserve the peace
and carry into effect,
and to carry into effect,
according to law,
according to law,
the purposes for which I've been elected.
the purposes for which I have been elected.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. All right, thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. We do want to thank our judge for joining us this evening. The judge has been a tremendous asset to the city of Greer and runs our court system as efficiently as any in the state. And our folks up at the municipal court are as good as they come. And he and our staff up there are to be commended for not only their oversight of that department, but for what all they do for us, both as a city council and also as a city. We truly do thank them. We have got one person to speak in public forum this evening, and then following that we will go to the minutes of the council meeting before we completely dive into the rest of our meeting. If you have come for the first part of this ceremony and would like to stick around at least for our public forum, we'll do council meeting minutes following that, and then we will start into some reports and appointments to boards and commissions. We will give you time at that point in time to head home to eat supper or to do homework, whichever one y'all have got coming up, because we don't want you to go to your teacher tomorrow and say the city council prevented you from getting your homework done. So we'll take a little break to let everybody do whatever they need to do at that point in time. Public forum is a time that we set aside that we entertain the petition of someone who would like to come and speak to something relevant to the meeting that we're having this evening. In this particular case, it is Mr. Richard Spavallo, who is at 3 Covey Court. He has come tonight to speak in regards to Ordinance 34-2015, which we will discuss later. Sir, if you would make your way to the podium, there is a mic there, if you would, as a means of introduction, introduce yourself and give us your address. We will make that part of our permanent record.
All
Thank you,
right.
sir.
My name is Richard Splivolo. I reside at 3 Covey Court, which is an adjacent property to the proposed subdivision. I'm here tonight. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to be able to speak for a few moments. I'd like to talk about a couple of issues that that have a direct impact to my property and several other people in our neighborhood. To be able to come up and understand what the plan is, and more importantly, to make sure that we make good decisions. As we go through this, I'd just like to preface this as I do have an advanced degree in geography, and I was an aerial surveyor for 7 years in my career. So as we go through this, this is based upon experience that I've had in the past as I've put this together. The first of our issues is the sanitation sewage access. As you know, the property at 16 Quail Creek is bounded by 2 creeks on the north and south sides. When the Rich Glen development came in, the sewage system was put in through those of us along the creek in our backyards. There are, to the best of my knowledge, at least for neighbors I've talked to and looked through records, no right-of-ways across the creek into 16 Quail. Now, there is access in the southeast section of the parcel in question. However, that is further upstream in the development from where we are down in the lower ends. There is grade. I've looked at it. I haven't surveyed it, obviously, but there is grade. But I don't know whether or not the grade is adequate enough to be able to cut access in. So our question is that I forwarded this concern to the Planning Commission. The city engineer responded that the plans are still very rough. So therefore, I have to take that, and that he didn't know where the access was going to be. So therefore, I have to take that we don't have any data. So we're really looking to see what is the requirement, what are the topographic grades that are going to be achieved, what are the grades of underground, and where does the intersection occur? Because if the grade is inadequate, how is access to the septic sewer system going to be accomplished? The second item that I'd like to discuss is the drainage the storm drainage within the area. There's been a lot of talk and concern about new subdivisions and the rapid runoff from impervious surfaces, but I believe our problem's a little bit greater than that. The watershed for this area is literally dammed by a creek. And on the map you have there's a little circle on Glen Creek Drive. There's a culvert, and that culvert is essentially a dam for a small watershed that extends approximately 1 mile to the north, to the northeast, 1 mile to the southeast, and then connects along Buncombe Avenue. So it's a fairly large, small watershed that comes through, is dammed at 1 Covey Court, which is just next door to me, with a 48-inch culvert. The reason I point this out is we really haven't had that much difficulty with drainage at the point in time. The stream is our boundary, okay? But the low-lying area that is going to be designated as the common area sits below grade of most of the area, of most of everybody's parcels. And during rainstorms, that low-lying area serves as a natural ponding basin. It's approximately 2 acres. So you can imagine that with a 4-foot culvert, that it backs up several acre-feet of water as we get into some of these large rainstorms. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago during Christmas, I believe that area was inundated. So it is a natural feature that prevents flooding of our backyards. The culvert, however, does get overwhelmed periodically. 2013, and I provided pictures to the Planning Commission, we did have a large storm that dumped about 1.5 inches worth of rain in 45 minutes, and it overwhelmed the culvert to the point where the septic line that we were talking about earlier, the access cover was covered by 10 inches of water. In the plan for the subdivision, in that low-lying area, or somewhere in that low-lying area, there's going to be a retention pond built. The question that we have is, will that retention pond be built in an elevation lower than the top of the culvert? Because if it is, it will displace water. And the only place that displaced water will have to go will be our backyards, unless And again, this is why we're trying to look for data, unless we were to enlarge the size of the culvert or insert a second culvert to be able to provide adequate drainage. That would be an additional cost to the development. But to be going forward without a good understanding of where that retention pond would be and the potential of displacing water into our yards, I think it would be something that we should know before we approve going forward. So, in conclusion, I try to keep this as quick as possible. The proposed subdivision is landlocked. It's not your typical subdivision. It doesn't have ready access to the infrastructure. It is landlocked to the existing infrastructure, okay? I'm only asking just a minor delay. Find some data. What are the grade requirements? The surveyors were out there. As a matter of fact, they tromped through our yards, but the surveyors were out there. They have topography. We have an understanding of what the septic requirements are. Is that southeast corner adequate? An estimate. Oh, wrong. I used to do that a lot. Then the second is can we get an estimate of where the retention pond is going to be? Again, we can do rough orders of magnitude to determine whether or not there is going to be a problem. Because if all we do is we make a decision without data, then what we're going to ask the residents of Rich Glen to do is to cope with those issues. Because hope was incorrect. Because that's really what we're doing is we don't have the information and we're hoping that all these other things are going to work. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your patience with me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Council, with that, we will move to the approval of the minutes of the meeting, the council meeting held December the 8th, 2015. Do I hear a motion to receive those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any items of note, of note for the clerk? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Yeah, but clear the room.
Well, I am surprised that with an excuse to leave to go home and do your homework, more of you didn't leave, so. I guess we'll move to departmental reports. David, that means you're up, Mr. Seifert, to give us some financial information.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I do have two items to bring to your attention in the finance report. First, we will start with the monthly financial summary for November. As you were aware, we did not have a second meeting in December, and we are presenting the November financial report. So at that time, we have general fund revenue of $2,214,478, with general fund expenditures of $7,544,912. That amount is 5% under budget at November 30th, 2015. We have a carrying cash balance of $3,123,237. Referencing your dashboards, you will see we have a combined negative benchmark variance of $422,679. Moving to the hospitality fund, we have revenues at 6% over budget for the period of $784,527, with expenditures of $111,427. That fund has a carrying cash balance in November of $1,348,821. Excuse me. And then finally, for the stormwater fund, we have revenues in November, or through November, of $30,649, with expenditures of $50,367, and a carrying cash balance of $762,080. Be happy to take any questions you may have on the November finance budget report.
Council, Mr. Seifert's available. As always, Mr. Seifert will be glad to take a phone call or an email in regards to questions you may have after this meeting, or the administrator will be glad to help you in that regard as well. Thank you, sir, for the report this evening.
The second item is, in the spirit of full disclosure, we had to modify the financial report that we presented to you from the auditor in the first meeting in December. There were a few, about 4 or 5 schedules that were newly required from the GASB that were inadvertently left out of that statement when the auditor was preparing those. And when the finance staff was doing our final review before sending that statement to the GFOA for consideration for the CAFR award, we noticed that those statements were missing. So I wanted to go over those real quickly just so you would know what those were. The first one, we found a mathematical error in one of the newly required GASB notes to the financial statements. That note was relative to the newly required South Carolina Retirement Systems information. The next item were 4 schedules, again related to the newly required disclosures for the South Carolina Retirement System that were, again, required by GASB, and those were inadvertently left out. And then the next one was a newly required GASB form relative to all the agency funds that we have fiduciary responsibility for. And then the last one is a voluntary supplementary schedule that the finance department in the city includes in our financial statements that is relative to the grants and awards that we receive each year. So all of these 6 schedules and the 1 corrected note are in the modified and amended statements. We have those printed for you if you would like additional copies, and we can, I can leave them with Tammy, or we can place them in your mailbox and get those to you. But most importantly with that is they are now included, so the GFOA will be reviewing those and have all the correct standards in place, but they do not affect any of the data that was presented for the city. Everything that was there was related to the South Carolina Retirement Systems and to the agency funds. It is not the city data that we presented for the budget for the city. So the last thing, we do have those reports. We have the amended report on our website, and if you have any questions for that, I'll be happy to take those.
Counsel? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If you would just let us know if you would like those, we will get those in your hands. Okay, thank you.
We'll move to the administrator's report. Mr. Driggers.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council as well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
It's it's been a year since we've been together. It's been since last year. We have been busily preparing for 2016. We are sharing information with our community through our website and other means as well. As Mr. Seifert was indicating, all of those financial documents, records, everything that we do in a spirit of transparency and full disclosure, all of those documents are made available to our public at all times. We certainly want to make sure that any member of the community that has any questions concerning the operations or the finances of the city, that they have access to that information. We take that very seriously, and we certainly want to make sure that we continue to provide that. The documents that Mr. Seifert was speaking of just a moment ago, those have been completely updated and are available on our site, and were even prior to tonight's meeting as soon as we made those corrections. A few calendar items that I want to make you aware of. One of our most exciting functions that we do each year is we prepare for our annual Martin Luther King Jr. Luncheon. It is certainly a wonderful opportunity for us to gather as a community here in our facilities, and this year is no exception. That will be taking place next Monday. We have a fabulous keynote speaker slated to present for that program, as well as special entertainment. We have the New Salem all-male choir that will be here performing for that program. I think you will be very, very pleased with that. Of course, lunch will be provided. and we are always enthusiastically looking for our elected officials to join in that celebration as well, as many of you are. If you've not indicated yet of your attendance plans, we certainly would like to make sure that we are accommodating and are aware that you are planning to attend, and we'll be prepared for that. But it's an exciting opportunity for us to continue to do this program. It's a number of sponsors, but our signature sponsor is the Greenville Health System, Greer Memorial Hospital, and of course without the work of members of our council and members of our staff as well, this event certainly could not take place. Mr. Griffin, any additional comments that you may like to make concerning that? You're so familiar with it and involved in it. Certainly want to make sure if there's any comments you have.
Well, you covered it pretty good.
Mr. Griffin, are tickets going to be available at the door, or are they going to be
We'll sell out
available?
before then.
It always sells out, so that's,
Yeah.
we hold your tickets for you unless you say you can't attend, and boy, there's somebody in line for it
Right.
if you can't. So that's why we count heads very closely. Always a sellout crowd. Yeah. Looking forward to that. Thank you. A couple of items for your agenda as well. As we are preparing for the Municipal Association's Legislative Action Day, many of us will be traveling to Columbia to participate in that event. That is on Wednesday, February the 3rd. There are also a number of you that will be participating the prior day, February the 2nd, in the Municipal Elected Officials Institute, the Advanced Institute. We're one of the rare cities that every member of our council is a graduate of the Municipal Elected Officials Institute, and we now have an opportunity for you to be graduates of the Advanced Institute, and we are so grateful that you are participating in that program. So in short order, we'll have folks that have advanced degrees relative to special training for municipal elected officials. If you need any assistance in finalizing any of those plans, Ms. Duncan, myself are glad to assist you to do that, but look forward to traveling with you for those events. As from a community perspective, we're looking forward to the Greater Greer Chamber of Commerce's annual meeting. That will be taking place on Thursday, February the 4th. I have not sent you information on that by email at this point, but certainly wanted to make sure you're aware of it tonight. We are a table sponsor for that event and have space there. If you would like to attend, I will need to get reservation information concerning that, or if you plan to have a guest, how we will be able to accommodate that as well. So I do ask you to look at your calendars. That's several things that are coming up right there in a row. Many of you will be in Columbia on Tuesday. All of you, I believe, are in Columbia on Wednesday, and then of course as we head back, we have the local chamber event on that Thursday evening. So a very busy week for you here in the next couple of weeks. I do want to make you aware that I am issuing a communication to all of our employees that I am temporarily suspending approvals for new applications to our tuition reimbursement program. That is only a temporary measure. I want to make you aware of it because as an email like that goes out to 200 plus employees, sometimes someone will call you and ask you what you know about it or why that's going on. So I certainly wanted to make sure that you were aware of that this evening. There are no problems or issues with the program other than it needs to be reviewed. And the only way to review those types of programs is that you need to stop it to make sure that anyone that is currently enrolled in the program, that they are processed and are being handled accordingly, and that we advise everyone that we are reviewing that policy, and then if there are any recommendations that we would be bringing to you for review, you would have an opportunity to take a look at that and make those decisions prior to us moving forward. It's a good time for us to do that because the spring semester is just beginning. We have very, very few of our our employees that get enrolled in summer programs, and so typically our folks will either start in the fall or in the spring, so it's the largest window we have to do that review. So we're going to be working on that over the next couple of months, and then if there are any recommendations for changes to that policy, we certainly would be bringing those to you as we would move forward, so that they can be considered from an appropriation standpoint in the next budget. But again, the program is working really well for us. We have many of our employees that are enrolled and involved in that program, and we're excited about that. But we do want to look at the long-term sustainability, and are we doing that the best that we can? So again, that's the reason that we'll be issuing that communication to our employees. I do want to also share with you, every year our leadership team, our executive staff, is involved in a book review. And this year is no exception. Our leadership team is involved in reviewing the 5 dysfunctions of a team. This is written by Patrick Lencioni. I've had an opportunity to hear the author speak. I've had an opportunity to review and read some of his other work, and this is a document that our leadership team has already spent some time on, trying to make sure that we are functioning the best that we can, whether that's at the department head level or what they're administering through their departments, or again with the executive team and what we are reviewing and providing resources to you as council, and then back to those respective departments as well. So we'll be working on this throughout 2016. I did share a copy of the book with Mayor Danner, and if any of you would like to have a copy of that and go along with us through this process over the next year, we encourage you to do that, and I'll be glad to get a copy of it for you as well. But we spent 2 hours on it yesterday in a staff meeting, got that kicked off, and we're looking forward to some additional follow-up as we continue to move through the year. Our council planning retreat is on the board. I have sent out to you today what's called a doodle poll. If you're familiar with those, then it's as simple as opening the document and indicating the dates that you are available. If you're not familiar with the document, it isn't that simple. So as the question was asked of me earlier, what we are asking of you is to indicate the dates that you are available. And then what the poll will do for us is it lets us know of the 14 dates that were proposed. It allows us to see where there may be conflicts, and we certainly try to work around those conflicts. So I encourage you, open that email that I sent to you earlier today. There's a link there that simply says respond to poll, and you would click that link and it will open up. You type in your name and you just put a check mark under the dates that you are available. You will see everyone that has replied before you, or if you go back afterwards, you can see the replies of everyone. But again, it's a planning tool that we use when we're trying to look at multiple dates for multiple people, and it saves our staff from being able to try to get on the phone and asking everyone of 14 days which day you are or are not available. It gives us that in a snapshot. And so we're preparing for that. That'll be sometime between the second week of February and the second week of March. That's the 14-day window that we're taking a look for. If it should fall out that there's a conflict that all of you can't attend any of those, then we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll look for a date that we can, because we certainly think that this is important and we want to make sure that everyone is involved in that process. And then we will ask you that sometimes after a lengthy meeting, it's very easy for us to run out the door very quickly because it's been a long meeting. But we're going to ask you to hang around for a few minutes this evening as we swore in our new council for the new term, and those that are continuing in their term of office. This is a new term. And for that new term, we want to capture tonight with a photograph So we're asking if you will hang around for a few extra moments. We would like to take a photograph of the group tonight, again, before you leave. So, and we can do that after executive session. So in conclusion of my report, I would like to ask council's consideration for 2 items in executive session. One is an update to a legal matter, some information that I need to provide to council, and one is a personnel matter involving our fire department. That would conclude my report, and certainly available to answer any questions the council may have at this time, and certainly myself and our staff are available as we move forward.
Thank you, sir. Council, any questions or comments in regards to the administrator's report? Great. He is, again, always available to assist with those questions, and we'll be glad to help, and we'll stick around and get some photos made later on this evening. Let's move on then to our meeting. Appointments of boards and commissions. We have an opening at the Recreation Association Board of Trustees. District 2, Edward Ballinger's term expired at the end of the year. Mr. Griffin, any update in regards to that appointment?
Mayor, I'll have my appointment at the next meeting.
All righty. Thank you, sir. We'll move to items of old business then. The first item is the second and final reading of ordinance number 33-2015. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Tim Howard Leasing, LLC, located at 92 Old Woodruff Road from R7.5 to RM. Mr. Pace joins us this evening to give us information in regards to the second reading. Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This process has been going on since November for these, but due to the holidays and other things, it seems to have drug out a little bit. So we're wrapping up some issues for you. But back in November, the Planning Commission did meet in regards to the rezoning application, and no one spoke in favor of the request or in opposition to the request, and the Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval for the said rezoning at Old Woodruff Road. And again, we had first reading of this ordinance on 12/8, so now we're finishing up hopefully tonight.
Thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion or questions. Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Item B is the second and final reading of ordinance number 34-2015, an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by William C. and Carolyn R. Doris located at 16 Quail Creek Drive from PD R12 and DRD to DRD. Mr. Pace?
Again, Mayor and Council, all these were dealt with issues in our November meeting, and again on your 12/8 meeting. There was public input into the session, and we are still obtaining and gathering data in regards to the property as far as development of the property is concerned. This has not went back before the Planning Commission, as DRD has another option of the final development plan that has not been proposed. It does go before our Planning Advisory Committee the end of this month. I don't remember the exact date. And staff will be reviewing the development processes as we move forward, along with CPW and others of that concern. So we will be dealing with those issues as we move forward. But again, Planning Commission will have the second review of this at a later date. Looks like the February meeting for the Planning Commission also to approve a final development plan for the property.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Pace, I know we have already spent some time on this. I do feel like that in light of some of the questions that were raised tonight, that we revisit this idea of the DRD, which is the Design Review District. It is a tool in our toolbox that we feel like helps us as council members, as well as you, the staff, and ultimately our citizens to engage in a planning process that addresses in a holistic sort of way a planned development. There are some fairly significant differences between the planned development, which was in existence and would have allowed development under much less scrutiny than the review process that will take place under the DRD. If you would, for both council and those that are here with us this evening, give us a quick overview of the PD and how that would have worked, and then the DRD and how that process works, and maybe some indication of how we've gotten to where we are and where we'll go in terms of addressing some of the issues that have been a concern both at our last meeting and then at this meeting. If you'll do that for me, please.
Yes, sir, I'll try to help you with those issues, refresh memories in regards to these issues. If you remember, the original development was done as a PD, as a planned development, which did not include Mr. Dorsey's property at that time. And a PD did allow us at that current time under state statutes to have secondary reviews and submittals to the Planning Commission other than the normal type zoning of a residential classification would not have any review process for us to look at other than the streets and layout of the community. Couple, 3 years ago, Supreme Court of South Carolina determined that PD was no longer applicable to single-use type issues. After that Supreme Court ruling was held, we developed a replacement tool for that. We still have PD in our books for mixed-use developments, but however, we developed a tool that would allow us the opportunity to look at single-use properties and the development of those properties and the design of those properties. And that's where the DRD, Design Review District, come about. Again, we take the process very intently and look at it in different aspects of what will be built there, how it's going to look, and what the street lighting, even the infrastructure, and all that will look at. We're in the final phase of the process for just setting the zoning tonight, which would be the DRD. That allows the applicant to submit again to the Planning Advisory Committee and to the Planning Commission to look at this at a more total approach as review processes. This talks about what type structures will be built, what those structures will look like, and any issues, green space, other issues that relate to this. By the end of that process, we will have determined, along with the developer and his engineer, what problems they may be with the property in regards to, if any, in regards to all utility connections, all stormwater issues, and all that could relate to the property as it would impact other properties in the surrounding area. We go through this very intently, like I said, and very intense to make sure that we try to cover all bases in regards to that and do not impact anyone. So again, it allows us that second review process. Once that's approved by the Planning Commission, that's what has to be built. There's no deviation from the plan unless it's submitted back to the Planning Commission again for another review process. So hopefully, once the final development plan has been issued and we're ready to move forward with the project, that there's no changes. We've had some that go through the process. If they're large, they do develop changes and have to eventually come back for a couple of minor modifications. But again, they are minor and major modifications that can happen to a DRD. If they're major, they may even come all the way back through City Council. If there's something density-wise, street-wise, or other things that would cause us concern, that process revolves back to you guys to make another final decision. So again, it allows us several reviews that normally don't take place with these type projects.
If there were some issues found on for the water, the flow of the water and that bridge or whatever that,
Yes, ma'am.
that thing there, would that be something that the committee would look at before coming back to us, or would that automatically come back to council?
That wouldn't automatically come back. It would be looked at if we think there is an issue with the flow of water. The stormwater would be looking at along with engineering. If there is some issues, we'll go back to the developer and his engineers, and we'll talk and see what the remedy is to repair or expand or do whatever needs to be done. They're under the gun then, the developer, to make those changes or modifications. And the project doesn't move forward until they're satisfied. Our staff at engineering and stormwater has to be satisfied before that can move forward. That would be the same with all the utilities, sewer, water, gas, power. CPW has to be satisfied that they're meeting all state and federal requirements when they're doing installations and those type of things. But those are, if they're following the plan, those are staff level reviews.
Okay.
At what point can this be shared with the citizens that have expressed their concerns?
Yes, ma'am. At any time they would desire to get an update or information in regards to this, staff will be glad to do so. We've had some correspondence with the gentleman who was here this evening, and one of my responses back today was, again, he was discussing the sanitary sewer, and I informed him that CPW would handle that review process, and Mr. Harvey's email address and phone number so he can get in touch with him, and they can be more specific than what I can. So we're trying to get them in touch with the peoples that they need to ask questions to also. But at any time they have questions or concerns, we ask that they email us, call us, or come by and let us know what those concerns are, and we'll try to help as much as we can with those.
So if this ordinance was passed that we're talking about now, and in the planning and all, and through CPW and our engineers and stormwater, et cetera, if they found that there are going to be big issues with these people, with the water flowing onto their property and all, would that halt this
It very well
development?
could. Yes, ma'am, it very well could. If we have concerns or issues that they're impacting, that runoff from this site would further impact existing downstream sites, and the city is not comfortable that they're meeting state and federal regulations that are imposed upon us to enforce, then the project stops until the developers and engineers get together and come up with a viable solution to remedy that.
Well, I could certainly understand their concerns with the, of course, the amount of rain that we've been having here lately. It never seems to quit. But then also being the only one street to get in and out, they're having no other street to go out. And what was the number of homes that were to be built in that?
I think we were looking at
Like
45.
Yeah, I was thinking 40, yeah, okay. So adding that much more traffic to that one street, going in and out constantly, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Pace, I believe last time you said in order to warrant a traffic study that the count would have to basically double the amount of density that's going into this area at this point.
I believe it was around 92 units that would impose our traffic impact study. And this is, again, only 45, I believe it was.
I think that was the primary concern for most of the residents from the HOA last time when they came in. I think it was that impact, and was there going to be some type of study, and based on planning standards, that's not warranted in this case.
That's correct. According to our current land development regulations, that's the policy we operate under. Is a requirement after the 92 trips.
Council? Other questions or concerns? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Second and final reading of ordinance number 35-2015, an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by the New Jerusalem Baptist Church located at 416 East Poinsett Street from C2 to R7.5. Mr. Pace?
Again, Mayor and Council meeting was held in November by the Planning Commission. No one spoke in favor or in opposition to the request, and Planning Commission did unanimously recommend that change to the residential classification. Have had discussions with the church and others involving this property, and they're happy with the decision that's thus far been made by Council and Planning Commission.
We have number 35-2015 before us. Do I hear a motion to receive?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any additional comments or questions in that regard? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, sir. Council, on items of new business this evening, one of the things that we do after a general election is elect a mayor pro tem. In our case, that occasion comes up every couple of years, and for the last, I believe, 4 years at this point, Mr. Griffin, Councilman Griffin, has served as our mayor pro tem and has done a wonderful job of doing that in my absence. This is a opportunity for us to elect or re-elect a mayor pro tem, and I will do that by opening the floor for nominations for mayor pro tem.
Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councilman Bettis for Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilman Bettis has been nominated for mayor pro tem. We will vote in the order that the nominations come. Do I hear another motion? Do I hear a motion that the nominations be closed?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion that the nominations be closed. Mr. Bettis has been nominated to serve as our mayor pro tem. Would you serve if duly elected, sir?
Absolutely would.
All right. With that then, I will ask for a vote in regards to the election of Councilman Riley Bettis as mayor pro tem. Ms. Duncan?
We need a second.
A second to that.
Second.
Got a second now, so I think we're ready to go. Thank you.
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
I'd just like to say, again, it's an honor, and I'm humbled to be your elected mayor pro tem, and I'll try not to mess it up.
We do thank Councilman Griffin for his fulfilling that job. It doesn't come up often, but it's obviously important that we have someone to lead our council in those times when I do happen to be away. And I thank you, Mr. Griffin, for your service to the city. And Mr. Griffin, we wish you well in terms of, I believe you've got 2 more in this current term, and then we'll see where we go from that. And we hope to have you with us for quite some time. Mr. Bettis, thank you for offering yourself for election and the service that you'll provide for us in the coming time. Next item before us is a bid summary. Century Park, we have the bid results from the Century Park project, and are going to get some additional information in regards to that project from both Ms. Cunningham, who is our Director of Parks and Recreation, and Mr. Drigger. So, Ms. Cunningham, do you want to take the podium, or?
You can do both. Yeah, we're going to do a little tag teaming
You
on
going to tag
this
team it
one.
this evening? All righty.
This is one of those situations that council's, the action required by council is obviously to deal with the awarding of the bid, and it is going to be our recommendation that we would award the bid to the low bidder. However, we do think that it's important that we provide some additional information concerning the overall financial position of the project. That's a really nice way of me saying we are already over budget. This was a unique project. We went after grant funding and were able to obtain grant funding, and then once funding was in place, we then went to attempt to design the project. And we've engaged you, we've engaged the community, we've retained the services of a professional architect in that process, and we've shared that what we are attempting to do at Century Park, which was to demolish the existing substandard concession and restroom building that was there, a need to construct a new concession area, as well as a need to construct a restroom facility for that site. In doing that, it was necessary for us to also do some site work for storm drainage that's in that area. As we were pulling all of the electrical conduits out and removing those, it was the appropriate time for us to do any type of upfitting to the lighting there at the facility as well. So the $200,000 that was awarded to us in grant, which has been matched by the city, is still indeed the lion's share of that project. As we approach this project, we've always indicated that there may be a necessity for us to reallocate some of our stormwater funds for any of the site work that was there, and we are proposing that we do that, as well as there may be a need for us to use any of our hospitality funds for any type of balance that may be necessary for the project. So what I would be recommending to council as we are reviewing the bids, and we certainly will do that, but I'm asking council's consideration as well as that as we move forward with the project, that the budget would still include the $200,000 from soil and water conservation, $200,000 from the allocation that we made in our budget for this fiscal year, and additionally $90,000 that would be set aside from our stormwater fund, and $90,000 that would be set aside from our hospitality fund, for a total project cost of $580,000. That would allow us for about a 10% contingency within the construction budget, will allow us to do the light upfits now versus doing that as a lease purchase in the following fiscal year. We really need to do that when we're on site now, and then allowing us to work within the dollars of the low bid. Both Red Watson has been very involved in this project and working with those numbers. We are currently at about $48,000 spent for the demo and other work that needed to take place and the design of the project. We certainly are at a point that we could not amend the construction budget, but if we are to do that, in reviewing the bids that we've received, we will need to redesign the project. And because we have the available resources, it is certainly my recommendation to council that we would proceed in that alternative way that we discussed earlier, and that is allocating those additional resources from both stormwater and from hospitality, and then allowing us to do the $200,000 grant along with the $200,000 match from the city on that as well. So that is, I wanted to get that out on the table first before we really moved into evaluating the bids, because all of that, it takes that to award the low bid. If we didn't award the low bid, it would take even more than that. And so we wanted to make sure that we were having the opportunity to have any discussion relative to that. It does not require an appropriation of any additional funds. Those are all funds that we have in hand and designated for those specific purposes. It's just that we would use restricted funds, stormwater and hospitality, for that portion of the project for which they're qualified to be used, and then we would use the other, our allocation, our appropriation, to do the 50-50 match against soil and water conservation. So I guess my first question is, again, does not require a reappropriation of funds. Those are dollars that are set aside, restricted, that can be used, but I want to make sure that we are all informed and aware and agree that that would be our path forward.
Council?
We previously approved the 200,000 match, right?
Yes, that was an appropriation in the budget to do the match.
Right.
And so what I'm suggesting is that we would use restricted funds that are allocated for those purposes for the balance, so that we do not go back and redesign the project. Mr. Watson's belief, Ms. Cunningham's belief, and I concur with their concern, is that a complete redesign of the project is probably going to leave a substantial piece of the project out. And what we're concerned about is, how do you leave out the restrooms? How do you leave out the consent? I mean, we really would have to do the restroom facility. But if you don't do the concession stand, then you're not doing the press box. You could do one without the other, and we would do a complete redesign. And we just don't, it's our opinion that with restricted funds that are available, it's not the best use of our resources to spend money to redesign the project.
I agree. It doesn't cost our citizens any more money.
No, sir.
The dollars are there, and then I think as far as the hospitality, I think the report we got tonight, that's the revenues are 6% above what we'd estimated to be at this point in time. It's a Class A project, and that's how you need to do it. Like you were saying, if there's things that need to be done as far as retrofitting, that needs to be done now. Don't wait.
We'll save
Or
money
just
doing it
just
now.
don't do the project at all, because it's not going to turn out right, the retrofit. I would say that we need to be more diligent in our estimating. That's missing it big.
Yes.
The three estimates that we received, are they basically the same material and?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, all the specs. They
So, Ms.
have-
Cunningham, if you would review the bids and the process that we to obtain the bids and our recommendation for the low bid.
Okay. And I believe you have the bid summary. For the Keith Smith Builders, their base bid was $728,110. And then we had two items that, for each one, that we had them itemized. One was site work, which is stormwater. So we asked for that. So there was a number one. Keith Smith Builders was 0. He didn't break that out. And the second one was for lighting. So we would know the cost involved. And again, that lighting project is rewiring. It's not the actual light poles themselves, it's the wiring under the concrete plaza. So we can prepare to actually fit new lights in the future down the road. But again, we have to get that wiring set so we can accommodate that. But that's the second bid, which was $52,992, and then the alternate bid was, instead of going with concrete for the plaza, we asked for another alternate bid of asphalt, so we could compare those two. So that 345 would be less from $728,110. Laser Construction, their base bid was $523,900. Again, number one for site work was $90,000. For field lighting was $54,900, and then their alternate for doing asphalt was actually $5,000 less than the base bid. And then Sossaman Construction, their base bid was $578,000. Their number one itemized was $56,000 for site work, $53,000 for lighting, and then their alternate one they did not break out for asphalt. And we certainly felt that, again, the low bid with Laser Construction, we have worked with Laser Construction when they actually did Cannon Center. We're familiar with their work. We certainly think their quality of their work will be certainly satisfactory here.
So based on their bid, we would, the 90,000 and the 54, that is contained within their 523.9. It is our recommendation that we would award the bid to Laser Construction at an amount of $523,900. We would not choose to use the alternate because that allows us then to use concrete versus asphalt. So we are not considering the alternate, so no need for the deduction. So again, 523.9 is the lowest of the bids, and that is staff's recommendation to council to award.
Council, you heard the recommendation of staff. Do I hear a motion to receive?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Questions of either Ms. Cunningham or the administrator?
When is the start date?
As soon as possible. Well, we were hoping that we would have gotten to this point January 1st to present it to you prior to the holiday, and that didn't work. So we
Is it already, I guess the plans have already been through permitting? Didn't we have drawings to begin with?
We do. We actually have those drawings, right? I mean, right, all of that has been approved. Believe me, every staff person probably in every department has been involved with this project. As far as when we award it, the contractor will then, I guess, get all the permits necessary to start the job.
Well,
Is that?
no, I understand they'll get the permits. I was just wondering if our building department had already reviewed the plans and said they're okay to go as soon as somebody applies for the permit.
The permits have not been issued, but all
Right.
plans have been reviewed.
Yes,
And have been approved, so they're, okay.
yes, sorry. I misunderstood.
And how long will this take? Any idea?
Well, we have a deadline for April, end of March. Our opening day is on April the 16th. So we are really pushing to get it done. That's why we've already done the demolition part, so the site is ready. We need to start with, I believe the building would come in first, and then they'll start doing the site work around it.
Is that a realistic time?
5 days.
Well, we
It's ambitious.
hope so. It is ambitious.
There you go.
I mean, you're in the business, and you say, it's ambitious.
We're
And we have a contingency if it's not.
We're trying to, of course, work around play. We don't want to disrupt play, and our spring season is our biggest season. We're also in a deadline for the grant. So we have until October that the grant has to be finished. So worst case scenario, you know, we will secure the site, we'll have restrooms brought in, whatever we have to do. Yeah, we've already thought about every plan that we can come up with from A to B to C, just to make sure that our children, that our programs are not disrupted. So, but we feel it's that important to go ahead and begin this project.
Our intent would be to give a notice to proceed and push for mobilization immediately.
Call them, tell them to load the truck.
Exactly.
Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas, Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. First reading of ordinance number 1-2016, an ordinance to provide for the annexation of properties owned by Nancy Cox located at 2960 East Gap Creek Road by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of R12 for said property. Mr. Pace?
Thank you, Mayor and Council, to have the first ordinance before you for the new year, ordinance number 1. However, it is our second case of board this year. Again, looking at this property, this is located at the intersection of Country Club Road and East Gap Creek Road. Now, this is in the immediate vicinity and adjoins the Greer High School there on Gap Creek Road. This is for 17.5 acres. The purpose is to construct 55 new single-family homes. It is currently 2 parcels, one of those being a heavily wooded lot, the other one being open land, and does contain a single-family dwelling currently on one of the sites, and that would be removed for the construction of the 55 single-family dwellings.
Mayor and Council, if I may, I'd like to provide some additional information. We have been advised by the company that is interested in developing the site that one of their site plans would require of them, or it would be their desire for them to obtain some additional property that is adjacent to this site. That property is owned by the city of Greer. It is part of our country club recreation facility site. We've evaluated that area, are not at this point in a position that we would recommend or not recommend. We've evaluated it and we do not see that that is an issue, but what we have been very clear to communicate to the development project is that we take no position in what council's perspective of that opportunity may or may not be. But we want to give that to you, again, in full disclosure as you consider this for an annexation, that part of the layout of the community does include them acquiring some additional property. Do you remember, Glenn, how much?
It could be up to 4 acres. They're still, I think it's 4 acres. They're still evaluating that area to determine exactly what is needed.
We want to maintain, if you were to consider that, we're looking at that we would need to maintain access to Gap Creek Road, and that it would not have any negative impact whatsoever to our current operations or facility there at Country Club Road Park.
For the purpose of further discussion, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion and questions.
Do we have any plans for our piece of property that's out there?
Ms. Cunningham, I'm going to ask you to address that because you're most familiar with the site layout.
Mayor and Council, at this time, I have not physically walked this property. If you're familiar with Country Club Park, when you go into the park, you go up to the ball fields. There's a maintenance building that we built a few years ago. Behind that building, going towards your high school, the terrain is not something we had planned for development for recreation purposes. It's a buffer for us. It could be used for a potential trail system. I think perhaps I'd like the option to walk it before I actually made that recommendation. I'm not sure exactly where or how far over the land that they're requesting goes, but I would request to walk it. But I would want access, trail access for people.
We just want to be perfectly clear to the development opportunity that we make no representation that the annexation of the property includes an agreement to obtain additional property from the city. We are just not in that position to make that recommendation either way at this point.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or a representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Okay. Thank you, sir. Other questions, council?
I just have a statement that concerns this property that I was talking to Mr. Pace about the other night, and we came by, he was working late, and we brought it up with an aerial view, and I guess I have to, if the aerial view was correct, I need to make a public apology to Greenville County Schools because some of the grief that I've been giving them about maintaining their property and preventing mud from running into our creeks and rivers falls in our lap. According to the lines, and Mr. Pace and I looked at it, and of course it's not been surveyed, but it does appear that there's some property that is the city's that is in need of some vegetation.
Between the development and the creek?
Well, actually it's that first parking lot that you turn in, the student parking lot, and there's that hedgerow of trees. Is it a sewer line right of way?
It's no right of way right now. It's just currently our property up behind those trees.
But apparently that hedgerow is the property goes on the school side of the hedgerow, and it's in need of some attention.
Is that the same creek that they canoe, they kayak?
That's the Tiger.
Yeah,
Tiger River.
okay.
You can in parts of it, yes, they do a lot of fishing.
Yeah, okay.
Sir, would you like to address council? Are there any issues that have been raised that you'd like to address this evening? Thank you. For the vote that is before us this evening, number 1-2016 is the ordinance to provide for annexation. I have a motion and a second in that regard. Any further conversation in regards to 1-2016?
This doesn't have anything to do with the City of Greer's property on it
No.
either, right?
No,
Okay.
not at this point. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, sir. First and final reading of resolution number 1-2016. This is a resolution of the City of Greer, South Carolina, adopting the Greer Downtown Walking and Bicycling Master Plan. As you are, of course, aware, this plan was presented to us in its condensed form, but in its entirety at our last meeting. It is a overview of ideas and suggestions, and creates a plan for connectivity, both in a pedestrian fashion as well as a modal fashion, be that bicycles and or traffic. That plan, like all other plans, is a living piece of work, and will change as our community changes, and as we seek to provide some contiguity and continuity to our downtown and to our adjoining neighborhoods. There is a lot to consider in this plan. If you have had an opportunity to spend any time with it, there are some pieces of the plan that I suspect that if and when we come to that point in time, that could be a bit controversial and may require council to work through those. But at this point, we are not authorizing anything from the plan to be enacted or enabled, but simply to pass a resolution in regards to the adoption of the plan for future use as we look to address some of those issues that are before us. Is there anything in addition either Mr. Driggers or Ms. Cunningham would like to add to those comments?
Sir, we present the resolution contained in your package in its entirety. Yes, sir.
Okay. This is a resolution. It only requires one reading. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for conversation.
I would just like to put in my 2 cents. There are 3 or 4 things that concern me that I'd like for us to be cognizant of any time we move forward on this plan. One of them is safety. I'm always looking for, I guess, the worst thing to happen, but anytime we expand or act on this plan, I'd like to make sure that whatever we do, that it's going to be a safe environment for anybody that's walking or biking. I'd like for it to be something that is low maintenance. I don't want to have to go do a lot of upkeep on anything over the years. I think it should be something that basically maintains itself. I'd like to see a lot of attention given to costs whenever we do make any steps with this. I'm not about putting a ton of money into something like this. And I guess the main thing that would concern me is that we don't interrupt the flow of traffic in any bad way, because it's vitally important to the majority of people to be able to have a free flow of automobile traffic around our city. And while I do think it's compatible, I wouldn't like to see us holding up major arteries just to allow bikers and walkers to have a path. So I think really those are the four things that really give me heartburn or cautious things to me.
Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yeah.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, on executive session this evening, we've got two matters to consider, one legal and one personnel matter. Do I hear a motion to adjourn to executive session? I have a motion and a second in that regard. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Miss Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, in executive session, we've considered two matters, one legal, one personnel. We've taken no action in regards to either matter. Do I hear a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Yeah, picture that.
Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Miss Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Stand adjourned.